Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Juho Kaivosoja. I handle some of the practical stuff on this course, which means that unfortunately you will have to be happy with me as Jarno is not here today. But not to worry, we have two excellent speakers today as ever. First, Teemu Salmi from Nixu, and after him, Mervi Airaksinen from Microsoft Finland. And well, without further ado, Teemu, please.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Also from my behalf, Teemu Salmi is my name. And as you can see, I'm the CEO of Nixu company here in Finland. I will tell you more about Nixu company, what we do a little bit later on. But I just made a reflection here before starting. I mean, it's probably been 30 years since I've been in a room like this. And then I was not standing here, I was sitting there, where you guys are sitting, right? So it's great to be back, but in a bit of a different context here today. So a little bit about me, who am I? I'm the CEO of Nixu company. Like I said, I'll come back to the introduction of the company later. I'm pretty new. I've been the CEO of this company now soon 2 months, started August 1st this year. Before that, I've been quite a long time working in the telecoms industry with a company called Ericsson, who you might know, supplying infrastructure, telecom infrastructure services and solutions to the globe. And there I spent most of my career actually running different businesses. And my 4 last year lived in the Middle East, and I was responsible for 21 countries there for all the telco services that Ericsson was selling to their clients. And in between Ericsson and where I'm now, I spent 5.5 years with Stora Enso, a forestry company where I was the CIO and head of digitalization. And there also had the responsibility of the cybersecurity for that company as well. So today I work with cybersecurity and cybersecurity only. That's a little bit about Nixu. We'll come back to that a bit later on. So for the next 30 minutes or so, roughly, we'll be talking about cybersecurity and a bit of a trending and what do we see from a Nixu company point of view when it comes to cybersecurity now and into the future. We quite recently launched a white paper on cybersecurity, and from that white paper, I'm going to take you through 5 areas, the 5 areas that you see here on this slide. So we're going to start with some megatrends and geopolitics, how that is impacting cybersecurity as we speak. Then a little bit about supply chains. Supply chains are under heavy attack, I would say, and there's many things to consider being a multinational company these days when it comes to handling your supply chain. Ransomware, of course, ransomware as a phenomena is just increasing as we speak, unfortunately, I would say, because it's of course criminal activity. But we'll look a little bit into ransomware, what it means financially, and what's been how that has been developing the last years, and how we see that developing into the future as well. Then a couple of one technical part. How is the architecture, IT architecture now changing for the future when you have to take cybersecurity into consideration? Some thoughts about that. And we'll round off talking about skills and capabilities within cybersecurity as well. After this short white paper walkthrough, then we will look a little bit more about Nixu and what we do in order to support the world, I would say, in these challenging areas that we're going to start talking with. This white paper report is available on our website as well. So if you're interested into the details, because we can just scratch the surface here now, since it's so short time today in this presentation. So go to our website on nixu.com and you can download this white paper free of charge, of course. So if you're interested in more details. But I'll take you through the highlights of the presentation or the report. Let's start with the megatrends and geopolitics. And I think, you know, like I said, I spent the last 5.5 years as CIO and head of digitalization for a big multinational company. And I would say that the word digitalization is getting a bit worn out, to be honest. I think that digitalization as such has been happening for years around us in society, in companies, and all services that we buy. I mean, we are more used to working digital than kind of manual transactional like the old days were. But still, it continues, right? We are today in a part of the world that is fairly modern, that is fairly advanced when it comes to the digital society. There are still big parts of the world where we are not as advanced when it comes to digitalization. So that's why digitalization still is a very current topic and will remain a very current topic for years to come. Industries, of course, with Industry 4.0 and the IoTs and the industrial IoT revolution that is now happening in the industries, that's also a very strong mega trend happening as we speak. Talking about geopolitics, I mean, I think that, we can say that we live in a turbulent world, right? Who would have thought some years back that we would have such a major crisis as we have right now in Europe with the war going on between where Russia attacking Ukraine, for instance. And of course, this unrest is of course also fueling cyber criminality in many different ways. Legislation, if we look at data, for instance, data protection and data in general, I mean, all parts of the world are developing new rules and legislation when it comes to how to handle privacy-related data, for instance. Europe, some years ago, the GDPR regulation was launched. China, quite recently launching also a privacy policy, and in US, the same. So legislation is also, growing geopolitical trend that will have an impact also on data management and cybersecurity. And I would say that the rise of cybercrime, I would say in general, I think cybercrime is in one way the new normal, unfortunately. I think all of you are, daily almost getting some kind of scam emails, phishing emails, asking for your credentials. This is kind of the new normal, and we have to just face that it's not going to go away. It's more up to education and awareness and understanding of this criminality from an everyday person perspective, not to be trapped in the criminal fraudsters, with the criminal fraud attempts, right? And also, I would say that ransomware as a phenomena now striking badly towards many companies, and the availability of cryptocurrencies where you can actually anonymously pay huge amounts of fees when it comes to unlocking if you've been hit by ransomware, is just fueling as well this criminal industry and these criminal activities around the world. That's definitely another trend, I would say. These three areas definitely are impacting the development in the cybersecurity. Well, we can call it an industry as well, because it is actually an industry. Where the good, like we at Nixu, try to help battle the bad on the other side. So if you look at the securing supply chains, and I think not only due to the fact of cyber criminality, but also due to the fact of legislation, and we saw that during the pandemic, it's harder and harder for many companies to have a global supply chain. You're so dependent on so much infrastructure, transportation, etc. So you're vulnerable with a supply chain that is truly global. So what we see now is that more and more companies are looking at domesticizing supply chains, bringing much of the supply chain back to core, where you actually are in control. So obviously, also from a cybersecurity perspective, because if you have a supply chain that is very scattered with many parties, your likelihood to be kind of hit as collateral damage, if nothing else, by a cyber attack increases. So many companies are now looking at how to make the supply chain much more leaner, slimmer, and more controlled from the domestic perspective. Also, another phenomena happening now is that when you're creating new partnerships, business partnerships, cyber security, and your benchmarking or cyber capabilities is becoming a more critical question. Before you sign up with a supplier or a partner, you ask them today, how are you working with cybersecurity? How can we be certain that when we ask you to deliver something to us, that you do it also from a cybersecure perspective? And then I would say that there are today cyber insurances available, but they are harder and harder to get. It's going to be tougher and tougher for insurers to actually insure any other company because of the fact that there is so much criminality today and it's getting expensive. So before you can sign an insurance today, you have to prove in many ways how you are working safely from a cybersecurity perspective as a company. Right. If we then move on to ransomware and talk a little bit about that, let's start with the graph here. If you look at the graph on the bottom of this slide, this is the global cost development of ransomware attacks. You can see today, roughly in 2022, the total cost on a global level caused by ransomware is roughly estimated to be around $25 billion. $25 billion. And if you only look, and it's a very short time frame from that perspective, looking only 9 years ahead into 2031, that amount is going to tenfold to 265, more than tenfold to $265 billion. Of course, the fraudsters, they see an excellent opportunity, right, with the new technology, new available technology on the market to actually, go after as much as possible, right? Where, of course, the good side of this tries to fight this and make sure that we can control and minimize this negative development as good as possible. But it's a staggering amount of cost for society and companies that is expected to come out of only ransomware. And then we're only talking about one kind of subcategory of cybercrime. So, of course, this picture and the development in the world these days also require companies to be much more prepared. So cybersecurity is not only a technical discussion anymore. It used to be. When I started in IT, well, that's on the Stone Age, right? In the end of the 90s, cybercriminality was not even discussed, I can tell. And only 5-6 years ago, when I joined Stora Enso, my former employer, it was not a discussion to be held in the boardroom. It was definitely a discussion on the operational level, and we were working with it on a daily basis. But only 3-4 years ago, it came to the boardroom level. And now I hear more and more colleagues, or my former CIO colleagues in the world saying, yes, cyber is now definitely a boardroom question. So, cybersecurity is becoming an enterprise risk management category in its own. It's not only a technical discussion anymore. It is actually about how do we secure that our company can survive and how do we manage the risks around cyber criminality. And the insurance companies, that's what I just said, they are requiring more and more proof of your prudence and of your quality in operational quality to even discuss any kind of insurance policies with you as a company. This was also I would say it was also easier if you just go back 4 and 5 years. But with this negative development of the total cost, of course, all insurers also say, no, we're not even going to think about going there. This is a huge exposure, of course, for an insurance company. Then if we look at some statistics, I've just gathered some statistics here. If we look at the top left corner and we look at the increase in ransomware attacks, only the last 2 years, it's 62% in number of attacks. Only the last year, so 54% increase year over year in number of ransomware attacks. Of course, then you understand the correlation to the previous picture when it comes to the damage caused and the cost to society and companies by ransomware attacks. 15.4 million DDoS attacks estimated for next year. And DDoS, just to make, I don't know how technical you are in the audience, but simply put, you can say it's a network overload towards a network. You just bombard a network with IP traffic, making that network being unusable for a company. But think about that, 15.4 million. That's a lot in just 1 year. 86% of all the attacks are financially related. Obviously, the criminals are after money. So all the criminality, most of the criminality is around money. Then you see the other 14, they have political reasons and other reasons for their movement reasons for their attacks. Over 45% of breaches involves hacking. So, obviously technical skills, really in-depth technical skills are available on the criminal side of the cybersecurity world. And 70% of breaches are caused by outsiders or externals, which means that 30% are still insiders in a company. That does not mean that there's so many criminal people within our different companies. But, also when you do a software development and you release a new software and that is causing a attack or an opening, vulnerability to be open for the outside, that is also counted in as an insider attack, so to say. So think about that. Still a lot of cyber criminality is coming from inside companies. Not maliciously, not with a bad intent, but still caused by the ways of working. This is, of course, then leading, if you look at the blue numbers on the right-hand side, that a lot of the funding today, when it comes to the IT leaders and the chief information security officers of the different companies, they spend more and more on cybersecurity. So the cybersecurity proactive investments and costs in technology and services are increasing year over year to battle, for instance, the ransomware impact that we saw on some of the previous slides. So if we just quickly look at then, what does it also mean from a technological perspective? There are a couple of things. You might have heard, some of you might be developers or technically skilled, that today more and more software development is happening in combined teams where you do development and maintenance, or DevOps, development and operations, in the same team. And used to be not thinking so much about security in those teams. But lately, also the recent years, a new terminology has been stated called DevSecOps. So you also take security into consideration when you do development and operations of a company's IT systems, for instance. Then now a new term that I'm stating, I don't know if this is a publicly known term, but what I'm stating is that we are going into DevSecOps. So security becomes a design principle. Before you even start developing any code, before you even think about coding, writing your first line, you think about, okay, so how do we architect, how do we develop this solution from a security perspective? So that is the first thing in mind. So only in a few years it's been going from, it's kind of important to be the first thing you think about before you even start developing. And this is a mindset shift that we see now, companies, in developers, and in the ways of working with IT or system development, I would say. Wow, nice picture, right? This is a picture from Gartner that talks about the complexity in the cybersecurity mesh architecture. So what does it mean? So many companies today, of course, they have a mix of different solutions when it comes to their IT infrastructure. They might have some cloud solutions from public suppliers. They might have some own developed solutions that they have in an own data center, and so on and so on. So the companies of today, they have to think about how do you, in a hybrid world where all of this is connected, how do you secure that? Because not everything is in your own control. Becomes very important to understand, how does my cloud providers, how do they work with cybersecurity? How do I connect my own physical data center cybersecurity work with them to ensure that we have a holistic protection around all the IT assets that we need to have to run our operations? So this is becoming more and more complex. Then zero trust. Zero trust, I don't know if you heard that as a concept, but zero trust is a concept that has been developed the last years as well. And it starts with making sure that you are in control of your digital assets. So a user ID, for instance, if I can log into a system, I'm a digital asset. So you need to control all your digital assets that have access to your systems. And you need to also make sure that you limit what they can do in these systems. So you get user rights. You can only read, or you can update, or whatever, depending on your role and your job that you're having in a certain company. So zero trust and identity management is getting more and more important as well. Then finally, if we look at the skill shortage on the cybersecurity market, a recent study estimated that there is a lack of almost 3 million cybersecurity experts globally. 3 million. So of course, it's a huge job opportunity if you're, studying right now to go into cybersecurity and learn and develop within there. I have not got the recent numbers for Finland, but in the neighboring country, Sweden, earlier this year, they made the same estimation from a national perspective, and Sweden is lacking 70,000 of these 3 million. Is only in Sweden. 70,000 cyber security engineers are missing to fulfill the needs of the market, both the societal, public part, and of course also the industrial part as well. So recruiting, training, and retaining talent is extremely important for all. I mean, it's important in all categories, of course, but in particular when it comes to cybersecurity. And also your strategy about, okay, so how do you work with cybersecurity? Do you even compete with the rest of the world with getting talent to your company? Or do you buy services from someone else? And you say that, okay, someone else is probably better equipped to handle our cybersecurity, and we don't have to fight against the rest of the world when it comes to talent. And flexibility is required to keep cybersecurity development programs up to speed. And this goes back to the fact that cybersecurity no longer is not a technical thing. It is a business must in order to secure that you survive as a company before doing anything else. Good. So that was a very, very short, shallow presentation of the white paper that we have created. So now I was planning to share a little bit about what we do as a Nixu company as well, so you can put that into the context of what we just talked about. So if you bear with me another 5-10 minutes, then we can open up for some questions. But before we go into that, I would like to start with showing you a short film.
At Nixu, our mission is to keep the digital society running.
Society evolving every day.
With new digital solutions.
There is no silver bullet for all cybersecurity needs.
Instead, we need holistic understanding that covers all aspects of the 360 view.
This is why we, a 400-strong group of cybersecurity professionals, exist.
We have vastly diverse backgrounds and approaches.
Our job is to be there, seamlessly in the background, but always ready to step into the front line.
When the situation is the hardest, our presence is the strongest.
For our clients, we are a true trusted partner.
Together we create more resilient services to enable digitalization.
We value our combined expertise and of our constant learning from each other and our clients.
Our vantage point to the field keeps us on the top of the cybersecurity game.
Let's make the future, whatever it may be, more secure for all. Together.
So that was a short film. It was a bit hard to hear, at least. I hope you heard it better than I did up here. But a short glimpse. We are a Nasdaq-listed company here in Helsinki. 400 cybersecurity experts working out of 5 countries. So we are people today in Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands, and Romania. We were founded in 1988 and listed here, like I said, on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange in Helsinki 14. We have very happy customers that work with us. I don't know if you know the Net Promoter Score thinking, but it's a scale from -100 to 100, and we want to be as close to 100 as possible to have happy customers. And we provide today a cybersecurity portfolio ranging from different projects all the way to managing customers' total cybersecurity operations, so to say. And this slide is trying to say that, all of the things that I presented in my former white paper presentation are things that we handle. So we work with software development and digital identity, as I mentioned as well, cloud transformation and IoT. So more and more IoT is being deployed right today. In particular, I would say, as a result of the Industry 4.0 and the digitalization of the supply chain in the industries, there's a lot of things happening. And of course, IoT being a kind of new phenomena, there's quite a lot of vulnerabilities there that needs to be handled. And then we work a lot with companies' awareness, helping companies to understand, so what do you do from a training perspective with your employees so they become more savvy when it comes to how to handle cybersecurity? And then last but not least, also, like I said, running the cybersecurity for customers as well, who said that you are better equipped to do that than us, so we let you do it and run that for us. And how are we working with our competence? Because we are tech cybersecurity 400 consultants, right? We do nothing else. We only work with cybersecurity. We do nothing else. We don't do software development. We don't have any own software, no own hardware. We partner with many people, or many companies, I would say, for software and other solutions, but we don't do anything ourselves. But there's a lot of heart in the company who wants to give back to society as well when it comes to these capabilities. So I wanted to take you through how we work with society as well, giving back. So most nations these days have national competitions when it comes to cybersecurity and hacking, and there's something called catch the flag. Different catch the flag exercises where you are developing certain scenarios, and you plant these scenarios for teams to solve. So it's kind of cyber criminal scenarios that different teams compete of solving on time and catching the flag. So in Finland, there's something called Generation Z Hack. We help them create the scenarios. We moderate also that exercise itself. And the winners of Generation Z Hack, they get to go to a European competition. So the winners here in Finland, they become the national champions, and then they are to compete in the European championships, if you may, of cybersecurity and representing Finland. Also there, we are helping EU, because this competition is under the EU flag. We're helping EU there with creating the scenarios, moderating the competition, and also coaching the team, the Finnish team that competed there. And in the Finnish team this year, actually, there were 4 Nixu people who were also competing, so to say. Finland, by the way, ended on place 12 out of 33, I think it was, this year. Quite recently, Finland also made a decision to buy some fighter jets from US. And as part of that decision of investment in the fighter jets, came also a deal that the Finnish national security signed with the US, and more in concrete terms with Lockheed Martin, who develops the fighter jets, that they should also give back to Finnish society. So there's a huge amount of money that's going to be invested in developing cybersecurity capabilities in Finland as part of this fighter jet program. And there Nixu has been asked by the Finnish national security to keep together an ecosystem of different partners who should, with the investment coming from Lockheed Martin, develop good solutions for cybersecurity for the nation of Finland. What that is, we don't know yet, because this is so new. We are now assembling academia, researchers, different companies into this ecosystem where we will start developing these cybersecurity solutions for the nation of Finland. And then we have also been part of a national authentication service development for Finland. So basically the access to public information through public information service providers. We have developed a platform for how to secure the identity access management. So when you log into some public services, I log into the public services, we are secured that we only get to see our own information and not anyone else's information. So that is also something that we have been developing for the nation, so to say. So we try also to work, of course, a commercial company, but also try to give back to society as well. Then last but not least, I would say another thing that we are doing right now is to try, from a thought leadership perspective, interview our top 100 customers in Europe to understand what are their current challenges with cybersecurity, what do they see for the future when it comes to the development of cybersecurity, So we are doing an in-depth interview, gathering all those data points and making a pan-European cybersecurity index, as we call it. Basically a report with different data points, how the big and small companies are seeing cybersecurity developing. This one we're going to put together, we're going to give it back to our customers so they can understand and learn and see what others are doing in order to, maybe change and redefine their own cybersecurity maturity journey, so to say, based on the findings from this report. Good, I think that was more or less what I wanted to talk about today. So our mission is to keep the digital society running. That's why we exist, and making sure that we stand on the side of the good and fight the bad, because the bad side is unfortunately growing day by day. And we want to make sure that the good win. So that's what we do. So with that was the 30 minutes I had planned for presenting. If you have any questions, please feel free. I give the word back to you. Are there something, by the way, from the online? Well, I guess online knows how to also online shoot your questions as well, and we'll take them from the room if there's any. Yes, please.
So you would, please wait for the microphone.
I think I'll say out here. Much more nicer to be out here.
Hi. So you were talking about implications of a global supply chain, having a distributed supply chain. But if we check the consumer trends globally, so if we move from a distributed supply chain model to a domestic supply chain model, that would obviously increase the price of goods that are cheaply available as we are exploiting the global supply chain system. How do you think general populations would react? Because privacy issues are somewhat in the background. Not everybody is aware of these privacy issues. But these commodity prices or these goods prices, they are right in front of you. You have to earn according to that. So how do you factor for that? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I don't think that, when I say that global supply chains are being domesticized, it's not going to be 100%. No way, right? But you're taking the effort you can to minimize your exposure in a global supply chain, right? Companies still want to have the global reach for their products that they have today. They don't want to compromise on that for the future, but they want to make sure that they understand, okay, where are my products produced? I mean, and you might have been parts produced and bought from Taiwan. You might have some parts and produced in Philippines. You might have assembly in Germany. These are the things that I mean, that they're starting to look into how can we minimize these different steps of the supply chain and become more cohesive when it comes to how to make sure that we deliver end-to-end supply chain. That companies would start bringing back everything, into countries. Not even feasible, right? Because, for instance, let's face it, semiconductors today are needed in everything that is developed, right? And not every country has a semiconductor production even, right? I mean, Taiwan caters for more than half of the world's semiconductor production. So, but I'm saying that it's going to be, companies are looking at how to secure more and more of their supply chain without, for that matter, losing the reach of their products, because that's how they make money at the end of the day. Thanks. The first question is always the hardest, right? Then I hope that, we can get some more dialogue. If there are any questions. No? Getting late in the afternoon. Yeah. No, but in that case, there is a question. Okay. How did Nixu adapt to remote working? Did remote working increase the pool of talents that Nixu can draw from? Excellent question, I would say. First of all, I mean, as a company, we were, of course, from a pandemic perspective, equally hit than anyone else, and we had to move back home, right? And being a consultancy company, we're used to spending quite a lot of time with your clients. This was a major shift, both for clients and for us as a company. Culturally, very strange. But of course we moved home, and of course, luckily enough, the business, continued to run as before. And I know you have all experienced this during the COVID and the pandemic. So then the second question here, when it comes to the talent pool, I would say it's both good and bad. One bad thing I think with the pandemic is that people lose a bit of the culture and the connection to company, right? All the chit chat that used to happen by the coffee machines, by the, after works, the mingle, the experience changes and talking to people, that disappears when you sit behind a screen in your basement or in your kitchen or wherever you've been sitting the last 2-3 years. And of course, then also the possibility to change an employer. The threshold becomes lower because you don't feel so culturally attached to a brand anymore. So I would say that the pool of talent has increased for us, but so has also a loss, of course, because also we have had facing that same problem that people can easily leave for someone else because you don't even have to walk into an interview anymore. You sit in your basement or in your kitchen and do the interview and you get a new contract, right? So it has made, I would say, the talent pool more fluid. That's how it is today. But now we're trying to attract back people to the office again to make sure that we build this feeling of belonging and sharing and learning from each other and make the office a place where you want to go, not where you have to go. That's kind of our mantra. Come to the office because you want to come to the office. It seems to be no questions here. So you have one. We take you.
Yes, you have mentioned legislations and everything. I'm just wondering, how is the interaction between business, SMEs and the government, the policymakers? That is the dynamic pro-digital society, or is it, there are things that hampering the process?
No, I think that of course we try to we work very closely with many governmental bodies, right? Where we try to share our view, both from a technical perspective but also from a business perspective, right? At the end of the day, many of these things are new territory, right? It's like you didn't have traffic lights when there were horses on the streets, right? Because simply you didn't need them. You didn't have speeding signs because you didn't need it, and it's hard to create legislation for something that you don't know, right? It's same here with GDPR and other stuff. You're trying to make a legislation for something you really don't know. I've been hearing things about like artificial intelligence acts. I mean, come on, how can you even, what does that mean? How do you want to, the risk is that you kill kind of innovation by trying to legislate something that you don't know. So of course we work closely with legislators as well to try and understand their views, and we come with our view, right? And try to, come to a common sense or support them to come to some kind of, view on how to legislate in the right way, not overdo it. Was that an answer to your question? Now there was a question, I'll take this one from online then. What would you say is the most important skill or trait in the field of cybersecurity? Tack för en intressant föreläsning. Okay, well, Swedish at the end there. Well, one thing, there's a couple of things. Curiosity. You have to be curious. You have to love problem solving. Right? Because cybersecurity is a lot about problem solving, right? So curiosity, problem solving, and persistence. You might not solve the problem at once. You need persistence, and you need to work with maybe some complex problem solving for a time, right? But curiosity, eagerness to solve problems, and persistence would be three things that I would lift. We take one more then from online. What advice do you have for people trying to get into cybersecurity job market? As some people are discouraged due to the technical requirements of these roles, non-technical people can come into this field. A couple of questions there, and I think that that's a myth that you need to have very, very deep technical skills to work with cybersecurity. You don't. Right? A lot of the things we do on the job learning, if you have some basic kind of coding skills, or if you're interested in coding, you know a little bit about coding, there's a lot we can do to train people and to support people get into cybersecurity. Like I said, there's a huge lack of cybersecurity experts. You don't have to be an expert to join the market. Basic skills are well good enough. And also, with the right business skills, to answer the second part of the question, you can definitely get into cybersecurity as well. There are jobs that are non-technical. We talked about legislation. That's one part, right? Understanding and working with legislative things and how that would impact cybersecurity. That's an area, for instance. So there is also a possibility for non-techie persons to work within the field of cybersecurity, for sure. All right.
Thank you, Teemu.
Thank you.
I did have a question prepared myself, but I can see that everything was pretty much answered already. So thank you very much for your lecture.
Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the evening as well with the next lecture. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So introducing myself, my name is Mervi Airaksinen. I'm the Managing Director for the Microsoft in Finland. And today I'm going to talk to you about cyber, security, technology, and the future for all of us. So such a huge topic, so I can talk plenty of different things. But I start with the cyber part. I think this was Jarno's guidance that talk about this one, and not on the happy topics of mixed reality and metaverse, and we don't go there. Yes, today we go with this one. But hey, shortly, I will share you something. First, I will start with the cybersecurity. Let's jump immediately to the topic, and then I will first start with our lessons learned from Ukraine. And basically what we have learned about the cybersecurity and the cyber war, as we have been kind of hands-on in that space, in that unpleasant war that is happening at the moment. But first of all, I will start with kind of why Microsoft, because I think, I'm not sure if everybody is aware how big the cybersecurity and the security business for us is. A few years back, we were committing to invest 20 billion into the research, into the skills, into the services on cybersecurity, and we are walking that path now. Here is a picture of our cyber defense operating center. So we have 8,500 own experts working on the field, and on top of that, we have over 15,000 partners working with us on a cybersecurity landscape. We call this monitoring room as a fusion room. So basically it means that there are people in different job titles working in the same room, having the global view of what is actually happening in the cyberspace. So we have researchers there, we have product specialists, we have service managers, and the cool thing is that there are people working globally. So we have a good visibility on what is happening in the east side of the globe or the west side of the globe. And the idea here in the fusion room is that we are sharing the same situational awareness all the time, and we can alert our clients, our partners in different parts of the world if we see something special happening in the cyberspace. I think that's the important thing to know. Then putting in some numbers that what kind of magnitude kind of is the workload that with what we are working on. So basically, we are serving over 700,000 clients in 120 countries around the globe. So that is providing us a great, I would say, situational awareness, actually, what is happening around the globe in the cyberspace. We are on daily basis getting 24 trillion signals, threat signals to be analyzed. It's a number with the 12 zeros behind, so you can imagine the amount of threat signals is huge. And basically, we absolutely need the machine learning, the AI capabilities in order to kind of maneuver this amount of threat signals, make analysis about it, and then in the end, make actions on it if needed. We are following over 40 different nationwide actors, let's put it that way. We see a lot of threats and attacks coming from the east. We see Russia, we see China, we see North Korea as the largest ones. But then there are over 140 this kind of non-state, non-government players that we also follow up. These kind of troll factories we have been talking about in the press. So it's very important that we keep on following them and seeing what they are actually doing. And then we can start to prevent, we start to see the patterns and share the information and the situational awareness to our partners so that we can mitigate the risks that they are pursuing to us. And then also, just last year alone, we blocked over 32 billion threat emails in the space. So there is a huge activities ongoing all the time. And I'm saying that the COVID, the war in Ukraine, they have just accelerated the pace of the digitalization in the globe. And because of that, we are continuing just in the early days with all the cyber threats and wars. And that development will continue to accelerate when every company will turn into technology and digitalization company. So I'm saying this is a very serious topic that we all should pay attention. Then a little bit about the war in Ukraine itself and the cyber part of that one. So especially, yes, not the expert on war, but have some details about the cyber part of it. And want to share those ones with you. So first of all, we have been working with Ukraine for years already, and we could see already year and a half before the actual attack that there is actually these kind of cyber attacks ongoing in a global scale, especially to Ukraine. Here you can see a chart where the cyber threats are focused. Okay, US is always, it's a huge one, 46%, but that's very usual. But Ukraine trending nearly 20% out of all the attacks going to Ukraine. So it's easy to say afterwards that, okay, this was a sign that the nation state attackers were looking for different kind of weaknesses in the critical infrastructure. Now it's easy to say, but nevertheless, these signs were already there year two before the actual war broke out. I need to say that we are publishing every quarter this kind of outlook. So if you are interested to see what is happening actually today, please go and check on our website. If I look at the Europe space, Ukraine continues to be the target for the attacks, but actually Sweden is popping up very heavily there, and also Germany. And depends on the quarter, we can see that the attacks are going in the springtime. They went on the manufacturing sector, on the utilities, but now after summer, it has turned more into the government side, in the think tanks, NGOs. So it varies a lot, but there is a good visibility, and we are trying to provide the information and learnings that we have also to the public audience. But okay, I think the thing about the war itself, hybrid warfare, the war broke out 24th of February, but actually the cyber war, that broke out already one day earlier. So the attack started 23rd of February. They started by hitting the critical infrastructure. Transport, logistics, banks, utilities, nuclear power plants. These were the kind of the targets for the attacks itself. So basically, it's important to understand that the cyber war is an integral part of warfare. It's not something different. It's integral part, and I come back that a little bit later on. But yes, we have been working with Ukraine. We still have people on the ground doing a lot of stuff, supporting the state to go on with their lives, ensuring that there are connections available. We are safeguarding the data. You know, digital governments are sitting heavily on the data itself. So that is something we needed to safeguard. I think that the Ukraine, there is one important lesson learned from the Ukraine. So a few weeks before the war broke out, it started to be obvious that this will happen. They had the legislation. They realized that the government requires the data in order to exist in order to exist, you need to have an archive of data that you actually exist. And basically, they realized that all the data is sitting in the country, and that is actually a challenge for them because they knew that the bombards, the missiles, are going to come. So they needed to kind of build a backup plan to locate the data from the nation elsewhere so that in worst case scenario, they would still exist even though the databases in the country would have been bombarded. And 2 weeks in advance before the war broke out, they changed their legislation. They allowed the data to move outside the country. And we were among the several partners who were actually doing this world record to move the data to the cloud and outside the country to ensure that whatever happens to the physical data centers, the data is there to access. And I think this is something lesson learned also for all of us. I think it was Estonia, they made 8 to 10 years ago, this kind of digital twin of their government. It's located in Luxembourg. At that time, I found it funny. But now I think, oh my God, they do know what they're doing and they do understand their neighbors. But these kind of behaviors already exist. So basically, if something would happen in Estonia, they have the backup of their country located in Luxembourg, and they could continue to operate as is. And I think it's amazing how well Ukraine has been able to continue its operation, even though they are bombarded and having a challenging situation in many fronts. Of course, just want to underline, of course, supporting them in these war crimes, supporting them to gather the data for the war crimes, processing those. And we do all of this. This is the free of charge for them. So the essence is just to help them to survive. But a lot of lessons learned. And I think the thing is that we cooperate very closely in the country. We have learned a lot, and we keep on sharing in the different government communities around the globe all the lessons learned, because there are certain patterns that we have kind of acknowledged there when on the ground. The second lesson learned is that actually we need to admit Russia is a world-level cyber influencer. They know how to do it. They are very good at it. They are also world-class on hybrid influencing and the cyber war. So I think that's there can be many challenges elsewhere, but nevertheless, this is something they have been practicing a lot. And there are list of government agencies, their kind of super skills, where they are very good at how they utilize the cyber and the hybrid war in order to kind of get to the means to their own end. So important, it's a full operation also on the cyberspace. It's not something separate, it's fully integrated on the government activities. Going from different agencies to another, they are very much governed well in this space. Third lesson, it's that these cyber activities and the kinetic activities, they are fully coordinated. I'm not sure if you can see all the dates, but there is red ones. They are for the kinetic activities. And then there are the blue ones, which are the cyber activities. And you can see the timeline. So more or less, they choose the city, they choose the target. Is it the Kyiv TV tower and the media companies in the Kyiv? Is it Zaporizhia's nuclear plant where they are hitting? Is it Lviv's transportation companies? They do the both activities in a timely manner, very coordinated. So I think the core message here is that cyber is something that not just happening, some nerd doing something there. No, it's well coordinated, and it's a core part of the warfare nowadays. So this is important for all of us to understand. And then I think these are the core lessons learned from our side, from the Ukraine. And I need to say that there are impressive level of details, which malwares, which threats they are utilizing which organizations are using them, against which kind of companies. So if you want to dive deeper on this topic, feel free to visit our website, and there you can see all these reports. The next report actually is coming in 2 weeks' time, and we continue to kind of explain all these findings of the cyberspace at the moment. Moving on, I think what is also important to know that this kind of nation-state actors, let's bring things a little bit closer to us now. We look at this war, we look at the cyberspace in Ukraine, but at the same time we can see these patterns, and it could be any one of us that could be attacked. There are different kind of masked social events, there are troll factories hunting down individual people. So overall, we need to continue raise the awareness about the cyber. And I need to say that I don't go into details on this one. There are a lot of ways how you can protect your organizations. These are something that we shared between the December and April to all the Finnish citizens, all the Finnish organizations. And I need to say I'm impressed how well we are prepared. And in all our reports where we look at where are the attacks going, Finland is actually not high ranked on the lists. I don't know, is it because we are not that interested, or we have these things quite well covered, so we are quite advanced. But nevertheless, I think this is important for all the organizations to start to pay more attention on this one, because the attacks, they don't always go towards the organizations, they follow up even the individual human beings. And from our side, I think at Microsoft, we have this zero trust concept itself. So basically, it's like the company is not trusting to any person. The essence is that we need to identify ourselves every time we want to access application, data, infrastructure, devices. So basically, it's considered as a breach until we identify ourselves. And it's this kind of called zero trust policy. And we need to move toward that direction, because the challenge with the existing organization on the security space is that they have so fragmented. There are like 40 different vendors doing one single task in their environment. It's impossible to manage. So we are moving more and more towards this zero trust environment where you have end-to-end visibility for all the activities happening in your network. And formerly, we used to have the firewall. If you could get access bypassing that, you could get access to every information in the company. That's not anymore the case. So basically, everything should be identity-based. The access to classified data should be identity-based. And there is a mark in the network, in the log, where you can see where the people are visiting, which files they are downloading, and so on. If there is a kind of activities, maybe me downloading a huge chunk of data, locating in another country to my laptop or to my own drives during the midnight, there would be a message to the administrator that, hey, look at this one. This is not the normal behavior from this identity. So please approve this activity or just stop it. But these kind of elements we continue to build into the security landscape, more knowing the people, more knowing where their identity can access, and utilizing the AI, modeling their behaviors so that we can actually see the threats, the breaches far earlier than ever before. Bringing this even more closer to us. So coming from the individual side then to the Finnish landscape. What we have learned from Ukraine is that the targets for the cyber threats has been usually critical infrastructure. Utilities, asset banks, food chains, transportation. And this is something we need to pay attention, and we need to start to be aware also in Finland that what are these areas, what are these businesses where we need to have a very high security levels. And I want to share with you, this is the Helsingin Seudun Ympäristö, so HSY. They are managing, for example, they are ensuring that there is a tap water for 1 million people in the capital area. And I would like to share with you their story, how they are actually managing their security landscape.
Tehtävämme HSY:llä on vastata vesi- ja jätehuollon palveluista yli miljoonalle pääkaupunkiseutulaiselle. HSY-organisaationa muodostuu eri osakokonaisuuksista, joihin kuuluu vesihuolto, jätehuolto, seutu- ja ympäristötieto. Nämä operoivat erilaisia laitoksia pääkaupunkiseudun alueella. Nykypäivänä uhkia on monenlaisia, sekä fyysisen puolen uhkia että kyberuhkia. Toimitaan huoltovarmuuskriittisissä tehtävissä, joten meidän osalta erityisesti niin asiaan nyt panostamaan entistä enemmän. HSY:llä on monenlaista toimintaympäristöä johtuen näistä eri toimialoista. On tällaista prosessiteollisuusmaista toimintaa laitoksissa ja sen lisäksi tällaista yleistä hallinnollista toimintaa, ja jokaisessa on omat erityispiirteensä, jossa nämä uhat tulee huomioida ja suhtautua niihin asianmukaisin varokeinoin.
HSY:n tietoturva-arkkitehtuuri on loppupeleissä aika vaativa, koska meillä on kumminkin todella paljon liiketoimintaa eri toimialoilla. Löytyy jätehuoltoa, vesihuoltoa ja ilmanlaadun seurantaa, jonka vuoksi sitten järjestelmiä on hyvin paljon erilaisia ja eri-ikäisiä, niin ollaan vaadittu aika sellainen laajamittaiset ratkaisut. Suurimmat hyödyt tässä on ollut se, että meillä on saatu näkyvyys alueisiin, joita me normaalisti ehkä niin kuin perustua tietoturvatuotteella oltaisiin pystytty saamaan. Tämä järjestelmän käyttöönoton toteutus onnistui todella hyvin, mutta suurimmat haasteet oli ehkä siinä, että saatiin ICT-toimittajat, kaupungit ja muut meidän yhteistyökumppanit juttelemaan keskenään. Keskeisimmät opit tässä on se, että mitä enemmän tarkkailet sun ympäristöä, niin sitä enemmän sieltä myös löytyy sitä havaittavaa. HSY:n työntekijöille tämä meidän uudistus näkyy parhaiten siinä, että ne saa paremmin tietoa siitä, että millaista työskentelyä toteuttavat tietoturvallisesti, sekä myös infoa siitä, että millaisia uusia haasteita ja tietoturvariskejä heihin kohdistuu.
Good. I like it when he's saying that the more you monitor, the more you start to be aware. So if you don't, I'm telling to my colleagues in the different companies that, hey, if you never hear about any security issues, then you have an issue. So the more you know, you should see the landscape itself, what is actually happening, then you can actually react. But if there is a silence, that's highly unlikely. So then you should dive a little bit deeper. But hey, as the title for today, it was about the cybersecurity. It was about the technology and future for all of us. So I will now switch gears a little bit about the critical infrastructure and security to the future for all of us. And I will start with the quote from our CEO, Satya Nadella. And basically he is stating here that technology input is needed in order to grow the economic output. And I like, basically what he's saying is that at the moment there is a huge uncertainty around the globe. There are high interest rates, there are a lot of supply chain issues, there are growing energy prices, demand to move to renewable energies. Many companies are having challenges. They need to innovate more. They need new ingredients for the renewable energy. They need to drive the innovation. They need to change their client and the employee experience. And basically what Satya is saying here, that this technology input is required. It can support to solve all of these issues. It's not the only solution, but it's one incremental and important element to solve these supply chain issues. You need technology to bring the visibility. Cyber threats, you need technology to get the situational awareness. And you need that accelerating pace utilization of machine learning and AI to manage all the threats and doing the analytics out of that. You need technology in order to drive the productivity, efficiencies, innovation. So basically, I think the future overall is very bright for us. More and more, the world is digitalizing, and every company is becoming truly a technology company. But this is, on the other hand, very positive future in one way. But on the other hand, this brings to my even the biggest worry that I'm having as a business leader. And it's about the skilling. We lack thousands, tens of thousands skilled people only in Finland, millions globally, in order to drive these efficiencies, the innovation need that we actually would need to do with the help of technology. You guys are in a positive position. Whenever you graduate, I'm sure companies are lining up to recruit you. And actually what we are seeing at the moment, that people who are, actually it's not anymore even the tech companies and the IT companies who recruit the most of tech talent. It's retailers, it's banking, it's energy sector. So basically everything is digitalizing and there is a huge demand for your skills. So in that sense, you consider yourself lucky. I want to open up a little bit the skilling topic. I will do it first in a Finnish scale. So basically there is a teknologiateollisuus, so technology industries, they have made a study that within the next 10 years, they require 130,000 new talents. They will employ it. And at the moment, in that industry, there is 317,000 people working. So basically, we are looking at 30% increase in the workforce. And there's a 13,000 yearly basis they need. Half of that is because people are retiring. So the amount of people in Finland is it's getting smaller. So basically, half of it is because the need is growing because of the retirement. The other half of the growth is coming because there is just a need. Every company will turn into the technology company. And that's why there is a huge market out there. And to give you, put this on the perspective, currently from Finland, 5,000 people are graduating with the technology background, yearly basis. So our math is not matching that well to solve this issue. We have this ambition. I've been sharing this also with the ministries, saying that, hey, within the next 5 years, we will skill 100,000 people in Finland. 20,000 per year. Half of it will be upskilling. There are a lot of people in the industry lacking kind of the future-proof skills on cloud, on cyber. So we need to continue reskilling these people. The other half has to come from the attracting new talent to the industry. We are working with the universities, of course. We are working with Shortcut and Migri. We just did on the summertime these kind of programs for the Ukrainian refugees to build the cybersecurity skills. We are working with Mimmit Koda to attract female talent into the industry. We are working with Saranen Consulting to ensure that people who want to change their career path from somewhere else to the tech industry, we enable that path. Of course, we are not doing 5-year graduation programs, that's for sure. But what we are doing is 3 months, 6 months trainings that will end up on certifying this person. And then that is how we kind of calculate our skilling. But this is the biggest thing we need to be able to do in order to make the world a better place, I would say. And this is not only a Finnish problem, it's a global challenge, I would say. Within the next 3 years, 500 million new applications need to be built in order to drive the digitalization. This would require that, as we are currently having 1.6 million software developers, that amount should increase to 5 million. It ain't gonna happen in the next 3 to 4 years. And that's why we also need to put a lot of pressure on the technologies, how we are using it, and how we are talking about the technologies. It should not be a rocket science. That's the core message. And I want to share with you an example of the new technologies emerging that will support us to digitalize our societies. So there is happening this no-code, low-code revolution. There are courses how you make app in a day. I want to share with you a short video from Kempele School showing how kids with the 6th grade, they actually learn to do the coding. These are the basic skills we need to start to kind of teach in the primary schools in order to make sure that we can manage this digitalization that is still heavily ahead of us. But we need these new technologies, which are not too much of a rocket science, in order to make everybody capable of utilizing and be part of the digitalization challenge that we have at our hands. But let me show you this one.
Yhtenä keväänä etsi meille kouluun ja kuntaan uusia työkaluja, mitä voitaisiin oppilaiden kanssa hyödyntää. Sitten löysin Power Appsin ja vaikutti sillä tavalla, että hei, tämähän voisi olla helppo lastenkin kanssa tehdä. Sen jälkeen esitteli aihetta ja ideaa Microsoftille ja päästiin yhteistyöhön tekemään tätä opetuspakettia.
Microsoftin visio on mahdollistaa jokaista pääsemään omaan parhaimpaansa. Tämä sama ajatus on meidän ihan kansallisessa opetussuunnitelmassa, ja opetussuunnitelmassa puhutaan myöskin paljon tämmöisestä teemoista kuin koodaaminen ja ohjelmointi. Niitä oli aika luontevakin kohta meidän lähteä mukaan tukemaan.
Me ollaan tehty Power Appsilla semmoinen hyvinvointisovellus.
Mä oon käyttänyt sitä esimerkiksi sille, että mä merkkailisin kaikkia uniaikoja ja ruokailuaikoja ja kaikkea tällaisia.
Mä oon käyttänyt sitä mun Power App-sovellusta ruutuajan ja liikunnan merkkaamiseen sinne. Ja hyötyä siitä tietenkin on se, että niin näkee sen kehityksen.
Me ollaan Power Appsilla tehty erilaisia sovelluksia, listasovellus, karttasovellus ja pelejä.
Hauskin sovellus, mitä me ollaan tehty mun mielestä on semmoinen karttahomma, johon me voidaan laittaa koordinaatit ja se näyttää, missä se on kartalla.
No me toivotaan tietysti näistä opetuslabroista, että me saataisiin jalkautettua tämmöistä matalan kynnyksen sovellusten tekemistä laajemminkin kuntaa ja sitten, että me saataisiin tuohon perusopetukseen kaikille oppilaille jossakin vaiheessa opinpolkua semmoinen kokemus, että miltä tuntuu tehdä ja mitä se vaatii, että tekee.
Antoisi tässä hankkeessa on ollut oppilaiden loistavat applikaatiot ja oppilaat on näyttäneet sen oman onnistumisen kasvoilla ja muuta ja se on meille opettajille ollut kyllä tärkeä viesti.
Perfect. Got to love the kids. But these were the examples I wanted to share with you. So going all the way from the Ukraine on the war topics, then to the elementary school in Finland and see that we all could actually be building apps in a day as the kids are showing. So the essence for us is to make technology usable so that we can solve, I think, some of the biggest issues in the globe. And I hope with this few examples, I was able to show you what the technology can do and inspire you to ensure that you graduate in this industry and come help us to save the world. But with these words, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mervi. Do we have any questions here, either in the classroom or online? Not seeing anything online, at least. Okay.
Hi. You mentioned the zero trust approach. So I wanted to ask you, basically, in terms, there was this Uber hack that just happened by, I don't know the actor of that group, but what they did was they bypassed their VPNs, their corporate VPNs, and then they got to a level where they got admin level access of their global cloud portfolio, platforms of their global cloud. So basically in such an environment in which such a big company like Uber and these companies exist and they're using these cloud distributed services, and at the end of the day, even in Microsoft Cloud Azure platform, there is one admin who distributes the responsibilities. So how can zero trust work in such an environment? And yeah, So that's my question, basically.
Thank you. Very good question. Yeah. So basically, the zero trust is based on the identity itself. So it defines the access on certain people to the certain confidential information, for example. So basically, it depends whose identity they are cracking. If no one's, then there is no access. But nevertheless, I think that is the core of it. So in the former world, then there was the firewall, and then you bypass it and go to everywhere. But now it's not anymore possible. And these are the concepts that we keep on developing all the time to be even more and more advanced. They start to be quite complicated to manage, I need to say. And the basic principle is that we trust no one, and then you need to gain the trust and identify yourself several times in order to get the access to the confidential level information. But I need to say, you are pointing out a good point here. And what I'm seeing that we talk about zero trust, but it's not yet kind of the mainstream everywhere. So there is still a lot of work for us to be done. But that is absolutely the direction where we are going. But so much work.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I guess that's it for today. Thank you again, Mervi, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you. Perfect. Have a nice evening.